Evening, weirdos. I am doing a smash or trash today. So, this is basically my version of reviewing a book and saying whether or not it's a smash, I loved it, or it's a trash, we're going to burn it straight away, and the fire department will be called. I'm not actually writing. And just to be clear, I don't actually burn books. So, the book that we're talking about is Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. I'm going to start off by saying this was a very anticipated read of mine because it was billed as containing a lot of the things that I love in a book. So basically, when I kind of saw the premise and what this book was about, it was, first of all, it's a horror, haunted house, sort of in the vein of Hill House type of book. Check. It is a book that is written in a format that is not your traditional linear narrative book format. So it has interviews and like text conversations. So I love anything like that. It's massive tick. It is a book that is supposed to be really, really creepy, is giving you a behind the scenes look in these kind of most haunted style shows, which I love watching. So it's this group of paranormal investigators investigating the ghosts. So that is like a massive tick box for me. So there was a lot of things kind of going into this, the premise of the book, that I really loved. So let me talk about the plot. So the plot of the book is that you have this team of paranormal investigators. They're called Faded to Black. Their show is called Faded to Black. And this is the episode 13 of this paranormal investigation show that you're getting within this book. The two main paranormal investigators are a married couple called Claire and Matt, and they are Mulder and Scully. So, any X-Files fans? Hi. Love ya. Mulder and Scully, the one is a believer, the other one is so not. So I did love that. I love the fact that Claire was Scully. She is a scientist. She studied science. She's basically there to debunk anything that they find. So with all these other, you kind of get to know that with all of the other shows of this kind of the 12 episodes before that, every time they find something or see something that they think may be paranormal activity, and her husband, who is Mulder, who is very much, you'll figure out that there is like a past, and he's kind of backstory, and he very much believes in ghosts. So every time he finds something where he's like, oh yes, this place is haunted, she basically goes in, throws cold water over it, and goes, no, it's whatever, the wind blew the rock off the tree, hit the window, and that was the noise. So you've kind of got that dynamic. Then you've got Kevin, who's kind of their like techie guy, and he is an ex-cop and also very much a believer. You've got their cameraman Jake, who I will say was my favorite character. I won't spoil what happens to him. And he's very sweet. He is kind of, he basically describes himself as Switzerland, right? Because he's there to observe. By nature, as a cameraman, that's what you do. You don't really insert yourself into anything. You just observe and you capture everything. And then you've got Jessica, who is, she's actually a professional actress. So she's the only one that is a professional actress. And she was brought on by the producers, I'm guessing, just to kind of liven things up a little bit. You know, another pretty face on TV. And she is very much a non-believer. But what we find out about Jessica is she scares easy. So this is kind of your cast of characters, and the plot is they all go into this foundation house where back in the day, in the 60s, they conducted a lot of experiments and into the paranormal and to the occult in this house. And there's some really crazy accounts of the things that were done to people, really horrible stuff actually, in this house, and therefore they believe that this house has the paranormal activity. It's haunted, so they're going in there, they're going to spend, you know the story, they're going to spend some nights in there, record. Claire's going to try to debunk, Matt's going to try to prove that there's ghosts, and everybody's happy, right? So anyway, so that's kind of your setup. Now, a couple of things about that. So if you're expecting full-on crazy ghost horror right from the word go, you're going to be disappointed. I'd say the first about 100 pages of this book are very much the setup, kind of giving you some of the history, introducing you to the characters, their diary entries, and a lot of setup of what happens behind the scenes of this kind of show, which I really liked. And I know that a lot of people didn't. Just by seeing and reading reviews. A lot of people thought it was too slow. They didn't like it. I like that aspect. I love those shows. I love pulling back the curtain on anything, whether it be theatre, movies. I love going behind the scenes and kind of seeing what's happening in the background. So I actually really liked that. They also give you a lot of like the character setup and try to, tell you who everybody is before there's any sort of paranormal or ghost or horror action. I will also say that on a scale of books in the freezer, I love that podcast, this book for me personally would barely make the fridge. Not even the, like, I was not scared. Okay, caveat, I do not scare easily. I really, really don't. Like, it takes, I mean, I can't remember the last time I was actually genuinely afraid of something, but I don't think that there's so the horror level for me wasn't particularly high. There's some really creepy shit that happens in the latter half of this book with this house and the spirits and that in it, but I wouldn't say it's particularly terrifying, but then it depends on your level of horror, and your level of how you can take the supernatural. So let me give you some of the negatives. The characters, I really struggled to connect with the characters in this book, and I found them quite one-dimensional, even though I think that Craig DeLuy was trying, especially with like when they did their diary entries and gave you a bit more of their backstory, was trying to make them more rounded, which I appreciated, and kind of gave them backstories and told you why they believed what they believed. But they were very like, Mulder was Mulder, Scully was Scully, the cameraman was the cameraman, and it just, this guy's cast as the bad guy. He's going to be the bad, it bugged me. I don't know if anybody else felt the same, but it bugged me. You can see I've got 2 tabs in here. This is for places that involve Jake, actually, because Jake was the one I connected to for very personal reasons. And Jake had a very abusive alcoholic father in his past. So you get a bit of his backstory, and he ended up being my favorite character. But like I said, I didn't really connect with any of them. Jessica, now she's a POC character, which is great. And spoiler alert, she doesn't die first. Fantastic. POC character in a horror that doesn't die first. Fantastic. However, she was so scared of everything all of the time. It drove me nuts. Like, and not nuts in a good way. I was just like, this is a little A, too stereotypical, B, the scared girl shivering in the corner. I don't know. I just had a real problem with the way that character was written. It may just be me. And I just really got on my nerves. So that's in terms of the characters. The actual kind of storyline, when we go into this sort of creepy horror bit of the house, actually reminded me a little bit of House of Leaves, if you've read that. So this sort of madhouse. And that bit I really said, so the end bit really kind of gets going, and you get all that. So if that's what you're there for, it's sort of the end bit of the novel. And I did enjoy that. I thought that was good. I thought some of the discussions around the experiments that we're doing, some of the revelations some of the characters have in the end, not terribly like wow, but I like that. I like the second half of the book. The good part, the bit that I really liked, is it was incredibly entertaining. Despite me having said all of those things about like the characters and it wasn't that, I actually had a really great time reading it. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I love the behind the scenes of the show. I actually really like the show aspect of all of this. So I thought that was really fun, but I did have my issues. So really from an enjoyment point of view, I would give it a 4, but I think I would knock a half star off because of my issue around the characterization and not really connecting, and I guess the way that they were a little one-dimensional in the writing. But other than that, I had a good time. What I would say about this is if you like this kind of concept of going into a haunted house, I think the most famous example and the best example, sorry, I'm pulling down another book, we won't show you that yet, is of course this gorgeous Haunting of Hill House. So I adore this. This is one of my all-time favorite books. I'm currently reading it on audiobook, re-listening to it on audiobook because I love it so much. And I'm kind of in the mood for haunted houses. And I think that if you like the idea of the paranormal investigators going into the house, Haunting of Hill House is the one still for me. However, if you want to broaden your horizons and get a few more books in that genre, I have some recommendations. Or at the very least, I have some books that I could recommend because they're on my TBR and I think they may be really good. So the first one I've got here is A Haunting on the Hill House. I was just going to get that right. And this is by Elizabeth Hand. Now, Elizabeth Hand's one of my favorite authors. She is an acquired taste. She is not for everyone. But this is basically the first time as someone, so it says Return to the World of Shirley Jackson. And she's written this book which very much kind of returns to that Haunting of Hill House and people kind of going back into that story and into this haunted house. So this is kind of next on my TBR. I have to read this and then I'll do a whole video on the two. So I just do kind of think that if you like that, Haunting of Hill House is probably the one. The other thing that I would recommend though is this over here. So this is The Elements of a Haunting. And this is peek behind the scenes of the spine-tingling investigation. So this actually goes behind the scenes of Ghost Hunters, which is kind of like the Most Haunted show I was referring to. So Ghost Hunters, Most Haunted, all of those kind of shows. And it's basically saying the greatest ghost stories ever told. So they connecting the science and the history in these cases that the Ghost Hunters sort of looked at. So this is real, this is not a novel, so it's kind of going into the TV shows and going into some of those investigations. So again, if you like that element of the Craig Delury book, which I do, the sort of the behind the scenes of the cases and that, and I'm thinking this is probably going to be quite creepy, so hopefully this will be creepier because you've got these most haunted cases. I think this would be a great read. Also accompanying that, if you want something non-fiction, is The Most Haunted show is hosted by Yvette Fielding. And she has just released a autobiography called Scream Queen, which I absolutely have to read. And again, it talks about her life, so it's her autobiography, but also I think she goes into some of the cases and some of the reasons why she became a paranormal investigator. So I think that, again, if you like that element of this book, you'll like that. If you just like the haunted house sort of element of it, and people kind of investigating what's going on in this haunted house, Haunting of Hill House, and then The Haunting on the Hill. And then, like I said, it also, if you like the kind of, the house is attacking you, it's weird, House of Leaves. I was getting definite House of Leaves vibes. And then, of course, there's always Mulder and Scully. Watch a few episodes of The X-Files because that's always fun. So anyway, so that's my review. So I think at the end of it, we'll give it a 4 for entertainment, but a 2.5 for characters, probably averaging out at a 3.5. I will read more Craig Delury. I am desperate to read How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive because, again, that goes back to my other love of horror movies in horror books. So I am looking forward to reading that, and we'll see if I like it more than I liked episode 13. Whoops, no, that's Haunting of Hill House, episode 13 by Craig Delury. So all in all, was it a smash or a trash? Well, I'm not going to burn it. It's going to stay on my shelves. I won't be turning it into a West End musical, but I'll give it a look every now and again. Maybe a Netflix miniseries. Yeah, Netflix miniseries. See you all later. Stay creepy. Bye.